welcome back, everybody.
Yeah, here we are.
Outside the Cinema, your weekly source for cult movie discussion. Your hosts, Bill and Chris. Thanks for hanging with us. Thanks for listening. Thanks for downloading. Thanks for streaming. Wherever you're getting the show, if you're hearing it, we appreciate it.
That's true. I do appreciate it. For real.
It is true. Yeah, we do.
Maybe not.
We have our
this
nice
week,
little corner
but...
of the world, and we're going to stick with it. All right. So, nothing. We're not breaking any new ground this week. Couple of flicks. One newer one older one. Both with an Italian flair.
Yep.
Right,
oh, yeah.
Chris?
Yeah.
It's So obviously our normal rule is we don't usually cover anything that's less than 10 years old unless we cite it for a reason. But in 2014, The Editor was released, and this was a film that back 10 years ago when our show was really screaming along and was attached with a bunch of other shows, and this was Astron 6 putting out their giallo love letter, if you will. And honestly, at the time, I remember watching it and not being impressed with it. And I hadn't revisited it since.
About halfway through, something happened in the movie, and I'm like, okay, I got to see what genre this is. And it said it was part comedy, and I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah, that's an interesting thing I think we'll get into when we start
I didn't know that going in, but it became obvious. I mean, to be fair.
Did it, though?
Once I read it was a comedy on IMDb, it did.
Okay. The other film we are doing this week is called The Sect.
Yeah.
This is another Italian. It's also known under the title The Devil's Daughter. And we'll get into it. That'll be the second one we'll watch tonight. But that's true Italian trash as opposed to inspired by Italian trash.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So it is. I'm trying to think. I don't really have a whole lot of housekeeping. If you did support, don't forget to leave via Indiegogo. Check your email if you haven't already. There'll be an email coming out about some stuff that you will want to know. Or update your email preferences. I know I had done an announcement for our in-person family screening, and a bunch of people told me they didn't get the email. And I'm like, well, I'm looking in the system. The email is correct. I know certain people got it, so I can't. There's nothing I can do at that point. The things people expect of you sometimes is really, really mind-blowing to me.
I mean, you got to check your spam folder, too, because if it's the first one you get from a place that looks like it could be a mailing list, if your email system is smart enough, it'll throw it in there.
And Gmail is totally like, you have no idea what it's going to flag for spam or what it's not.
Yeah.
I could get an email from my mom and it'll be like, spam?
Yep. I get,
but then it'll be like, send me your social security number, dark web shit, and it'll be like, yeah, sure, you should have this.
Yeah, the other day, it did not let through a password for a reset I needed, but I got 2 Camp Lejeune emails that came through. Like, seriously?
Password reset is one of my favorite ones that never gets through.
I just instantly go to spam. I have it open on the desktop ready to go.
Right, seriously. So, that stuff's happening. If you're a member of our Patreon, thank you for supporting the show. We're going to start gathering some Patreon picks. So if you want to send us, if you're one of our supporters and want to send us some requests for us to cover, please do that. We'll start rocking those out in the next couple months. I think we got through pretty much at least 2 from everybody that had sent ones in last year. There was a few that we didn't cover because we'd either already covered them or it was something that we just chose not to for personal reasons, which does not happen often, but from time to time, one of us will be like, you know what? I don't want to do this.
Yeah. Yeah. That doesn't mean that later I won't feel different about it. But at the time, sometimes you got stuff going on in your life and you're tired of watching abused families or whatever.
It's true. It is true. It is true. And Scott Joe will be on later in the show. I know Scott is finishing up, Joe is finishing up Hellraiser. Yes. And Scott, I don't know, he probably went to the movies and watched something and he's going to tell us about it, which is fine with me because that's what his segment does. All right, let's get into these reviews, man. Let's do The Editor first. 2014, as we said, Astron 6, directed by Adam Brooks and Matthew Kennedy. They are the guys that run Astron 6. Astron 6 is, I like to think of Astron 6 as it would have been A24.
Okay.
Had they just been a little better at what they did.
So you mean it's like a cult A24?
Yeah. Because their budgets are obviously much less.
Yeah,
but if you go back and look at their early A24 stuff, they weren't like necessarily cranking out giant budgets. They definitely have better budgets than Astron 6 does. But
yeah.
Either way. Anyway, all right. Well, let's fire up the trailer for this. That's not what I wanted to do. I had it right here. Where did it go? Bill, come on, man. All right, here we go.
Didn't you tell me all the victims were missing the same fingers he was?
Sure, you have wooden fingers, but who doesn't at times?
He was an up-and-coming editor before I met him. Before he almost killed his assistant.
Ah, the editor's gonna kill me. That was his work print.
Interesting how that name keeps coming up. Editor.
You're married to Josephine Jardin, aren't you? The star of the Mirror and Guillotine?
Here we go with the film talk again.
I really admire his films.
I don't want to see you around here anymore. You understand me? You take death with you wherever you go.
I saw him.
I saw him.
The Black Man.
The Black Man?
I was going to tell you it's the first good thing you've edited in an extremely long time.
Okay, The Editor. Okay, so first and foremost, that trailer does not play any comedy in it.
No.
No comedy played in the trailer at all. There is a blurb that comes up that says something about how funny it is, but that trailer is not presented as a comedy in any way, shape, or form.
I was just looking up. I knew Astron 6 was a name I knew, but I wasn't familiar with everything they did. And they did one of my favorite movies. They did The Void, which I think honestly is the best movie they've made or produced.
The Void's excellent. They did Manborg too, right? And
I didn't
Father's
watch
Day.
that though. I don't know.
They were both fine.
Yeah,
They
Psycho
were both
Gorman
fine.
was fine.
The Void is excellent.
Yeah, The Void is fucking top-notch existential cosmic horror. Just the best non-Lovecraft movie.
Right.
I'll fight
Absolutely.
people over that.
So The Editor stars Matthew Kennedy, Connor Sweeney, Kevin Anderson, Brett Donahue, Tristan Risk, Brent Neal, Jerry Wasserman, and some others.
Oh, hey, because I don't want to talk about this movie. Steve Kostansky, one of the directors of The Void, I tagged him in one of the pictures I did that was like quote unquote inspired by a Void type creature, and he liked it. He actually looked at it. That was nice. I don't know if I've said that on the show before, but that makes me feel really good because I don't expect anybody to ever see anything I do, but like he was like right on top of it.
That's cool. That's very cool.
So, all right, I guess we'll go back to this other movie then.
All right. This also stars Paz de la Huerta, who I feel like we kind of need to talk about.
I was wondering if we were going to, yeah.
Yeah. So Paz de la Huerta's been in a bunch of stuff. She was in Enter the Void. She's had bit roles in like Side of House Rules and Walk to Remember. She was the main star of Nurse, which was a sort of new 3D slasher. But one of the things that comes up with her is she put out there during the Harvey Weinstein Me Too movement that Harvey Weinstein had assaulted her a couple of times. But she's also like, how do we tackle this?
I don't. What part are we talking about here? When they complained about their role or the what was it the advertising or something that she claimed screwed up her career?
Well, there was the injury. So she's known to be a problematic
fully up on this,
actress in terms of being incredibly hard to deal with.
Which would be fine if she could act. She's terrible.
Yeah, and that's the thing. And she's awful in this. And she wasn't good in Nurse really either. And I feel like she had received a back injury, I think, on the set of Nurse, and said that it was. She then
Oh
sued.
shit! Yeah, it says in 2015 it was reported that she was suing the filmmakers for ruining her career and injuring her when a speeding ambulance driven by a stunt driver struck her while shooting. That's a legit complaint. I'll give it that.
Right, correct.
Yeah,
but she like sued for something like $30 million, if I'm not mistaken, or something like insane.
Okay.
But she's kind of known to be someone that comes with a lot of baggage, and out of a lot of the people that came out with the Jeffrey Weinstein thing, she's one of the ones that a lot of people kind of raised an eyebrow at.
Why would that
now
be?
Not taking that's the question.
No, I mean, why did people raise
That's
their
the
eyebrows?
question.
Like, why were they suspicious?
Well, because apparently she's been known to, and again, this is allegedly. I don't have because she's been a real pain to deal with and has been known to lie about things a lot throughout her career.
Okay.
And it was a lot of people were like, it was kind of
so it's a boy cries wolf kind of thing.
Odd. Yeah, and it was the timing of it where she kind of like piled on after the fact, but always claims to be this really outspoken, like upfront person.
Okay.
So she's
there's things that need to be cleared up.
I mean,
in the whole thing, basically.
Correct.
Okay.
And I'm not saying that she wasn't being truthful. I'm not saying she's lying.
No, I'm not either.
I just know that I'm just saying that there is definitely she has a track record of being a very difficult person to do.
Yeah, if you are out there saying stuff like whatever you want, and the truth doesn't matter, when something important happens, this kind of thing will happen to you. Like,
correct.
I've worked jobs where when I was a teenager, all I would do was lie about I didn't do this, I didn't do that. And when it seriously was something bad and I said I didn't do it and I didn't, nobody believes me. So I just switched to telling the truth at that point.
Right. But she was poised to be like a big time, at least, genre film actress. Like she was given a number of really good roles, but because she was so incredibly difficult to work with, she kind of really pissed away a lot of the opportunities that would have been given to her.
I don't understand how that happens because, you're so lucky to be cast in anything, let alone a leading role. What? Her and what's her face that was in Knocked Up that everybody hates?
Catherine.
Yeah, you're not Angelina Jolie level. Why are you acting like this? Even Angelina Jolie's a nicer person. I don't understand being a fucking bitch about everything. And that's for men too. Don't be a bitch about stuff. I don't get it. I just don't. Is it too, I don't know. Are you in the spotlight for too long and then you forget what it's like to be a normal human being? Or do you get used to people fulfilling your every want and need on set? And I don't know. I don't get it.
I don't either.
Fortunately,
but now that we've said that, we've made that piece. Yeah, we'll get back into the movie. So the editor has a number of people show up in it that you were very familiar with. Udo Kier shows up playing the psychiatrist doctor, and Lawrence Harvey shows up as the priest, and he is best known as the real weirdo from Human Centipede 3.
Yeah.
3 or 2?
3.
2. 3.
No,
wasn't 3 the
3 was the prison.
3 was
right?
the right.
I know.
So
I didn't.
2 was the really gritty black.
I didn't watch any of them. Honestly, I know.
I watched.
I know the whole thing, but the idea of poop in the mouth just can't do it.
Turns you on? Yeah,
turns
I get
me
it.
completely off. Is what I was gonna say. Completely.
Sure.
Just.
But he was the main guy in I think it was the second Human Centipede movie.
He's a perfectly decent actor in this. I didn't mind him.
Oh, he's actually good, and we had met him at a Rock and Shock. He is the shortest man alive,
like Danny DeVito size, right?
That isn't like a little person. He's 4'7" or something. So tiny.
Yeah, and he plays a priest in this one, and he's English, which I didn't know because I never really heard him talk outside of, I don't know. I think when you interviewed him, I was just making sure everything was recording over at the. I don't know. I don't remember.
Probably. That's probably in the archive somewhere.
I don't remember a lot anymore.
Although, actually, I think that might have been one we never ended up releasing.
That's possible.
I think we might have ended up not releasing because he didn't add anything.
Well, also like the response from the people that listen to the show to the movies, they're not great. So why would they want to hear it?
True.
But yeah, he was actually in both. He was in 2 and 3, and 3 he was in a different role. I just had to look it up to be 100% sure.
All right. So the editor is Astron 6's homage to the Giallo, homage to the Italian horror film. And it is played just like one of those films. It looks cheap. It sounds cheap. It's cut poorly, purposely. The acting is very stilted. The voiceovers are done, like all of the stuff is done voiceover after the fact.
Yeah.
And it's very much looking and living in that world.
Yeah. But right off the bat,
to a point.
one mistake they made. They had a good soundtrack.
Soundtrack
It
is
didn't
great.
repeat the same phrase over and over and over again, which is all those movies do. So they kind of missed that. And that...
But they did use music of Claudio Simonetti, and then they used a lot of Carpenter Brut music. So it was stuff like Carpenter Brut obviously is a new artist or newer artist. And Claudio Simonetti, they use stuff that I don't think it was stuff that had been used in other films or not. I don't remember offhand. But it was legit.
It just felt
like,
too varied.
Had the right feel.
You know?
Well, yeah. It wasn't the same. Dun, 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 dun,
Right,
dun,
right.
dun, 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 dun,
And to be fair to the movie, before I get honest, I did notice them not aping, but kind of like heavily homaging like the beginning of Mrs. Vard and stuff like the sex scene in the rain. And slapping her around, like that's all straight out of other stuff. So I did appreciate and recognize that they seemed to know what they were pulling from. That's fair.
So one of the
right?
directors, Adam Brooks, yes, Adam Brooks, who was also the main star. He also worked on Father's Day. He worked on Wolf Cop. He worked on all that stuff. And I feel like the other guy, Matthew Kennedy, the two of them are Astron 6 essentially, because they all work together on a lot of these things. But wearing double hats, also being the main lead, it was. I mean, it worked because he definitely had the look. He had the kind of like straggly hair and the mustache, and so the story is very simple. You have these guys that are a film crew that are making a movie. You have Ray, who's the editor. And people just start getting killed at the movie set, and then trying to figure out the whodunit is of it. So they obviously bring it in on Ray, the editor, because he'd had an injury where he'd cut his fingers off, and all of the bodies of the people that are getting killed are having the same fingers removed on their bodies, and it just it plays itself out like a giallo, and this is kind of where my issues, I think, kind of come in. Whereas I feel like the setup of it and the first 45 minutes of it are excellent.
Yeah.
I think like it moves along pretty swiftly. It's, interesting. The kills are interesting. The kind of like jabs of humor. But the other thing though is, like you said, you looked it up and it says that it's a comedy, but it's not played like a comedy at all. Like everything is played very straight to the vest,
Right.
and almost for me, like if you're playing it up and making it a comedy, I feel like you kind of got to let the moviegoer in on it, because if you're not a fan of Italian cinema and not a fan of giallos in particular, all this stuff is going to go right over your head.
Or you're just not going to find it funny.
Right. And that's the other issue. If you're making a comedy, like it's kind of got to be funny to like the majority of the public.
Yeah. Black Dynamite is the example I'll probably refer to a lot here.
It's the perfect
because it pulls from all of the blaxploitation stuff, but on its own, it's funny. There's one point in this, and this is what made me look up what genres this was supposed to be, where I think, if I'm remembering correctly, the dude thinks the woman's wearing a mask and he pulls her face off and then squishes it back on when they realize it was her face. And I'm like, all right, that's not anything that I've seen in any of these movies. What the fuck is, and I looked at it, comedy. And then I'm like, all right, I'll be generous. And if it's even a little bit funny, I'll laugh and I'll give it that it's a comedy. And I didn't laugh at all. Not once.
Yeah. it's, they use a number of specific scenes that they've pulled from like scenes that they pull from other giallos. There's that scene where, if you remember from, I don't remember which exactly giallo it is, but where Fennec was like thrown to the ground in the rain.
Yeah,
and,
that
like,
was
they have sex in
Your
the rain.
Vice is a Locked Door, or
is it that, or is it
Mrs. War?
All the Colors of the Dark?
It's one of the. It's definitely. I don't know, but we know what it is.
It's one of those two, right? But like they do that scene and they play on the misogyny in this from those movies, which is 100% of like men slapping their women in the face to get them in line and like being mean to them and being rude to them. And if you just watch this and don't have any idea that that's what those movies were like, it's not going to make any sense.
Right? Like, why the fuck do they keep hitting these people? There's no reason.
Like, there's a great example of it. Ray is sitting and having dinner with Josephine, played by Paz, and the cop walks up and he's like, "Hey, listen, man, I'm not going to sit here and listen to you get berated by your woman anymore. Why didn't you slap her in the face?" And like, if you don't understand what a giallo is or Italian cinema, that's not going to make any sense to you.
Yeah. Can I? What I think their biggest mistake was in this whole thing was the color of the blood. I think that the realistic red color was wrong, and it should have looked like that red paint you get in second grade to match
like almost
the
orange.
Italian blood. Yeah, because that then would have been funny. It's like, oh, look, they mixed it exactly the same way as those cheap motherfuckers did in Italy all the way back then. And it was just, the gore was very well done. I have to say that, but it was
for sure
too good to be a parody of this, of this genre.
It didn't. It's weird to say, but it didn't go far enough.
Yeah,
because it goes pretty far, and most people will watch this movie and be like, "Oh, this is fucking ridiculous."
Yeah.
But at the same time, like, you got to turn it up even more. And they do the thing that like they do in giallos, where like in the third act, it just goes off on this in completely different direction.
Yeah.
Whereas like all of a sudden, it's like a supernatural metaphysical thing where like the editor can't distinguish what's real and what's film anymore, and he's like having visions and all of these things.
Yeah.
Right down to like the videodrome part with the like pulsating video cassette. And I love that they pay these homages to so many things that I love.
Yeah.
And I don't understand why I didn't like it more, because like it's all stuff that I love, but I'm just like, the dialogue is funny and hilarious, but not funny enough.
Right.
And again, it's played a little too close to the vest. It's like, if you're going to go for it, fucking go for it.
Yeah.
Black Dynamite, again, as you said, is like the perfect example of just like, we're parodying like everything.
Yep. But there's funny lines too. Like, but Black Dynamite, I sell drugs to the neighborhood. Like, that on its own is a funny scene. Captain Kangaroo Pimp. Like, come on. And this didn't have the closest this got for me to getting a laugh where I'm like, all right, if they keep going with this could be really amusing, was after one person is killed with an axe and the cop shows up and there's this back and forth between them that feels like it was a bad translation for the dub, which was good. And it was just like they convinced this other guy that oh, now the killer got away. He's miles away from here, even though the guy's holding the bloody axe, and he hands it to the cop and he's like, oh, now your prints are on it. And I'm like, okay, that you're getting somewhere with it. And then it ended. It didn't take it far enough to be satirical, because that's something that a regular giallo would do, because the cops are stupid, or they don't do anything, or they do too much. And this was just kind of in the middle.
Yeah. Then there's the whole kind of like the subtext where the lead actor's in love with the cop, but there's no real reasoning for any of that.
Yeah. A lot of nudity.
Of nudity, and the beautiful women, I might add.
Not your like super skinny supermodel women, like real normal, like in shape women, like with curves.
They look like women that you would see in a 1970s giallo. Like they, full figured, but like, very pretty but not phony looking. So like that works, and they all get murdered.
The
So,
best
like,
the best thing they did with the nudity was the two characters are talking on the right side of the screen, and on the left side is sort of like a funhouse mirror kind of thing. And one of the naked women walks by the camera, full, just head to toe, naked with the 70s hair and everything in both spots. And as she's reflected in the funhouse mirror, it's just her hips to her knees are like super exaggerated. And that was nice. That was really well thought out. And it was framed it was done well. But the rest of the movie just didn't have that like cheeky sense of humor.
Yeah. I mean, there's some great scenes in it, I think, that are fun. I mean, like, I do like that scene where the main actor goes after the editor and he threatens him with the chainsaw.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he's just like, it escalates so quickly.
Yeah. And then it felt like it went like outside of the genre they were aping on at that point for me, because like there's not a lot of chainsaws in Giallos. They did, however, go with your razor blades and all that. I did like the little nod to Black Belly of the Tarantula. All kind. They know their stuff.
Absolutely.
That's
absolutely.
I gotta be fair.
And I feel like I know Giallo's pretty
You
good.
do.
Like, I'm not going to tell you that I'm like the be all end all historian on them, but I feel like I've seen just about everything. I haven't seen everything, but I've seen all of the major players and a large number of the second tier. And I recognized a large chunk of everything that was being done in this, and they definitely know their stuff.
Yeah, I probably caught about half of what you did.
It sounds about right. But I just don't. I mean, and I remember and I felt the same way about it watching it this time as I did when I originally watched it, because I remember when it first came out, everybody in our world, which we don't really have that world anymore, but like it was like, oh, it's the best, it's the perfect send up, and then I watched it and I was like, I don't see it.
Yeah, I feel like this gave me the same feeling as Barbarian Sound System or whatever it was.
That's another one too that I just didn't like. I couldn't understand why everyone loved it so much.
I mean, it was incredibly well done. Toby, what's his name? Anyway, the lead guy, he was great, but the story just for me.
Yeah.
And that's what this did.
And there's been a bunch now of like Giallo influenced or send ups. Like Mare was one that came out around that time. I can picture it. The strange color of your tears?
Oh,
Is that what it was?
Yeah. Wasn't the Love Witch the same style of?
Love Witch was more like Saturday afternoon Technicolor.
Okay, I didn't watch that one yet, but
Love Witch is good, but it's too long, and the director is very problematic.
Like what? More like a Hammer film?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know anything about the director. I'm gonna look that up.
She's an anti-trans.
Oh, fuck that! I'm not even gonna bother.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna watch the movie then either. So.
The Love Witch looks incredible. We talked about it a little bit when we did Survival of the Film Freaks, and it's definitely all about the look, but the substance doesn't really follow it up.
Okay, like that one always to me felt like it would fall in line with like a woman in a lizard skin.
No, it's definitely no.
Okay.
It's I would akin it to.
I haven't seen it, so I have no idea.
More to like the color stuff that maybe Hitchcock did.
Oh, okay, okay.
Like the look and feel, but definitely more like Technicolor. It's not a horror movie. It's not like a murder. It's interesting enough. It's too long.
Huh.
Is what it is. All right. Well, I guess let's grade this. Oh, hang on. All right, Chris, do you recommend and what is your grade for The Editor?
All right. So here's the thing. I'm gonna recommend it because I know that people will like it. If you like Giallos, there is a 70% chance you're going to like this. I think that's fair. I don't like it. It looks fantastic. The costumes, the sets, the jumpy edits, all of it is perfect. Like, it feels like it, but it felt new. It didn't feel 70s grimy. And that kind of that was like a conflict in my head. And I also
that is such a tough thing to do, though.
Yeah.
Like very few films. Like there's one thing of like the full grindhouse aesthetic, but there's another thing of just like actually making it feel like a movie from that time period. There's only Antrim is really the only one that I can think of offhand, which wasn't necessarily great. I didn't think Antrim was really great, but I felt like it actually felt like a lost film from like the late 70s.
You know, Black Dynamite desaturated it a little bit, and they put the grain in there and the noise, and that one, it never crossed my mind that it didn't feel like it could have existed then. But this one was just so vibrant and saturated, it looked fantastic, but the story did nothing for me. And I get that some people in the Italian movies, they're not great actors, but you don't want to have people acting bad or have badly directed actors in your parody, because like Natalie Portman is a fantastic actress and she was stiff as a fucking board in Attack of the Clones. Like, and it takes you out of it. And I'm not there for it. And that's kind of what this did. Paz was not good.
She's awful. She's awful. And she just looks so odd in this movie.
Yeah. Yeah, her look
Like
doesn't fit the Italian aesthetic of the time.
No. And it's now, okay, maybe this is, I don't want to get myself in trouble, but like, she's supposed to be like a sex symbol. Like that's like her thing. She's supposed to exude sexuality. And I just don't feel it. I don't see it. I don't get it.
Yeah, you're supposed to have some sort of attraction to the character when they're set up like that. And there was nothing. I felt nothing for her except get off the screen, get back to the other stuff.
Right.
But so I'm going to recommend this highly because it's a parody. It's of a genre that is not parodied very often. And it looks great, but I'm going to give it a D because I didn't like it. It's a weird review.
Yeah.
I know.
I'm going to give it that. I'm going to give it the 2 for like, whereas like I recommend it and I don't recommend it. I recommend it if you are a fan of Italian cinema and giallos, then yes, I recommend it for you because they go deep. They give you some very specific homages. And you're going to be like, oh, hey, you know, I remember that from Lizard and Woman's Skin or Black Belly of the Tarantula or Your Vice is a Locker Room. Like you'll catch those calls. If you're not familiar with those films, it's all going to go over your head and you're going to just think it's boring.
Yeah. Or excessive. Or both.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think most people would just tap out like 45 minutes into it if they're not familiar with Italian cinema.
I'll be honest. I had to come back to this 3 times. Like I paused it and went and did something else. And I'm like, okay, I'll come back now. And because if I don't finish this, I'm never going to.
And it's only like 90 minutes.
I
It's not
know.
long.
It felt so long though. Yeah.
So that's my kind of like, if you're into that stuff, I recommend it because you'll get some, and it looks the part, but it doesn't feel the part.
Yeah.
And in terms of a grade, I mean, these guys know their stuff and their effects were excellent. So I'm going to give it a C- based on look, feel, music, and the effects. But the story doesn't work for what they're trying to do. And they are trying to make a 70s giallo to a 2014 mindset, whereas the same moviegoers aren't looking for the same thing. So you have to find that like kind of happy medium.
Yeah.
And they just miss on that.
Yeah. Yeah. If they went,
I recommend watching The Void. That's what I recommend.
oh man. No, that they know what they're doing. They absolutely know what they're doing.
Yeah, these guys definitely know their stuff.
Yeah.
There's no question there. Just a miss, I think.
Yeah. Well.
Okay, speaking of a miss, can we go over 2 today? That's the next
I'm going to be
question.
honest. I'm actually surprised we agree on that. I thought for sure you would have loved it because of what it was.
I feel like it's pandering. I felt like it was pandering. And I felt like it was pandering specifically to me. Because I love that stuff, and they're like, "Hey, look what we did here! We took that scene from All the Colors of the Dark. Yeah, you remember that scene?" I'm like, "Yeah." It's like when you see a friend that you haven't seen in many years, and you used to be like really good friends with them or whatever, and you haven't seen them for a long time, and your first question to them is, "Hey, man, what you been up to?"
Right.
And their first question to you is, hey, do you still listen to Dropkick Murphys?
Oh,
You know what I mean?
yeah.
Like, does that make sense?
It does. It does.
Whereas, like, okay, I've had 20 years since the last time I saw you. I've had a lot of stuff going on, and you're asking me if I'm still into the things that I was 20 years ago.
Yeah.
My first question to somebody is, hey, man, how's it going? What have you been up to? What are you doing?
Right.
Like, what do you do for work? Where are you living? Like, I want to know what's going on with your life now. I know what you did 20 years ago. I don't care about that.
Right. It felt like there were some sci-fi parodies in the 80s that we all remember. And I think top Star Wars parody obviously is Spaceballs.
No question.
But one that matches our review of The Editor that kind of misses the mark and the tone is really weird and off is Ice Pirates. That's what this felt like. Like, you're almost there, but you don't have the right comedy.
And there's a difference between trying to make a parody, but also still trying to make it be like its own movie. And that's what this does. It's like the editor's trying to be its own movie while also parodying all this other stuff.
You can do that. That is possible. Like Battle Beyond the Stars is Seven Samurai. And until somebody points it out, you may not, unless you're looking for it, you may not notice it. But this is like, it's all obvious.
Yeah.
But it looks,
Okay,
but
let's
it's a
move on.
fantastically made movie, except for the script.
All right. So our other flick this week, we are going back to True Italian, 1991, La Setta, or The Sect, also known under the title Devil's Daughter. This is available to watch on Shudder. Shudder has actually put up a bunch of good. Well, I shouldn't say all good, but they put up a bunch of Italian stuff from the 80s and 90s recently. And this is one I'd never seen this,
Me
so I
either.
was actually pretty excited to check it out. So here's a trailer.
Watch, Lucifer. Watch. This is for you.
What's happening to me?
You have been chosen. I have come to give you that greater life.
Why did you disobey Mary?
The time has come when the son of the rebel will become flesh and blood and will abandon God.
All right, The Sect, 1991, directed by Michel Sylvain. He also did Cemetery Man, Stage Fright. He worked on. He was one of the stars of Demons. He's the half metal face guy from Demons.
Oh, okay, yeah.
But he's worked on a bunch of stuff that we have done on the show.
Yeah.
Let me just scroll through. I know there was a couple other titles of his that we covered, but Cemetery Man's a classic.
Absolutely.
The Church was the other one.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
He also he was the director of the Dario Argento World of Horror documentary, and this film is actually also produced by Dario Argento. So, The Sect is pretty simple. You got Kelly Curtis plays Miriam. She's a school teacher, and I'm getting a little ahead of ourselves. So the film opens with these hippies out in the desert, just living their hippie life. They ain't bothering anybody.
Yeah.
They're just living their hippie life. When a weird stranger shows up, walking through it was desert, but then when he walks through, it's nice and grassy and wet.
Yeah.
Which was odd to me. I didn't understand that really.
You know what the first odd thing was about all of this?
What?
The song that they were the Neil Young song.
Oh yeah. That was a kind of a bizarre choice because that's not really it's supposed to be like hippie, like 1970 or something,
Yeah.
right? Is that what it said?
Yeah. Which is before the song came out, but whatever.
It's not the point.
No, it doesn't matter. That I can let go because like you're making a movie fast. You're not going to check all this stuff.
Right, yeah.
You got to go find a stork.
That's
Not worry about what
Fair.
year this song came out.
So
I'm not making that up for anybody that hasn't seen.
he's like
this.
he looks like Jesus Christ with the long hair, and he's wearing the like robes, and
He's absolutely a cult leader.
Yeah, and he comes through and he's like, I'm hungry and I'm thirsty. Could you help me? And so they're hippies and they're like, yeah, sure. And they give him food and he's spouting all this weird rhetoric. He's talking about how the he quotes the Rolling Stones, "Sympathy for the Devil," and
like that's not an
then
obvious
apparently
hint.
I know, right? And then apparently a biker gang shows up and murders everybody.
Yeah, well, they followed him.
He was. So there's this whole thing where he's the leader of some sect of a cult. There you go, the title.
Yeah.
And the guy that's like running it or whatever tells him, it's not your time yet. And he's like, well, when will be my time? And he's like, not yet, but might be years, but be ready.
Yeah.
And then we fast forward to present day, which is 1991. And we meet Miriam. She is a school teacher. We also meet the older gentleman, Mobius, who is traveling with a package. And then he's like weird. How would you explain his character? I'm not even sure.
Is this the old guy?
Yeah, the old guy.
I honestly thought that the old guy in the beginning was the cult leader dude from the desert. Is he? Is it the same guy? I'm not even sure.
No, it's not. It's not. I thought
really
the same thing
felt
too,
like it. He's your harbinger, basically, in this movie. He's the one that knows a lot of stuff, but won't tell the audience or the main characters. He's the plot device. Essentially, I can't think of a nice way to describe him, but he comes off as like this memory fucked kind of just old dude that's spouting nonsense that for some reason the main character is enamored with. That's not too wrong, right?
No, it's. I mean, what it all boils down to is there's this secret society, this secret cult that is sort of devil worshipping, but not.
Yeah.
They worship like ancient. They got these ancient beetles, and basically he, almost gets hit by Miriam's car. She takes him home because she looks at him as like this like old man that's not gonna hurt anybody or anything, and
sure, because old men never killed anybody,
and not never. And then he like puts a beetle in her nose that's like this beetle that's like supposed to be evil, and I felt like, okay.
So would it be that it was that a bull weevil? Get it, evil?
Oh yeah,
terrible.
bull weevil.
Sorry.
Yes.
God, this fucking movie.
It starts off really strong.
It does.
That scene in the desert I thought was great.
Yeah.
I thought, the old man on the bus and then, the train and then getting, caught up and then.
But what was up with the second lady getting killed? Like after all that, what was the point?
I don't even know.
Yeah, me either.
I don't know.
It was so weird.
So I guess the like beetle, like there's like this ancient well under her house.
Yeah, that was hidden. It says it was hidden in the description. And I'm like, how is it hidden? It's a giant fucking metal cover in the middle of your basement.
Right, yeah. She just had never gone down there, apparently.
But it can be moved by the weakest of old men. That fucking lid should weigh like 1,000 pounds. And he just flings it off to the side, I guess forgetting his own strength or something. Like, what the hell?
Yeah, so this movie does a lot of what we talked about last week with, what the hell was the Italian movie we did last week?
Oh my God, wow. That's pathetic, I don't know.
I don't remember either.
Once we finish the show, I forget everything. That's why Reverend Scott's so funny to me, because I'm like, when did I say that? I don't remember that. All right, fine.
I don't know, man. I don't even know where to go. You got anything?
Yeah, I sent you a text as I was watching this movie. And I wrote, Okay, so at an hour and 27 minutes, after she's all hooked up, I'm not going to explain that to the audience. The dude chants, Ayah Shub Niggurath, the black goat of the woods. But they're devil worshippers wanting to get revenge against the Christian God. And they just throw in this Lovecraft reference without like looking it up or anything, because Shub Niggurath supposedly protected humanity at one point against hostile gods. Like, it fits with the Italian filmmaking side of it, but it was so jarring to me because I'm familiar with that, with those stories. And it was like, wait a minute, why? How did we get to Lovecraft from God? It doesn't make sense.
Yeah, their whole thing is never really clearly explained.
Not at all. Not at all. I mean,
and that is really kind of where it falls apart. Because I enjoyed the front half of this, but the second half of it, when everything kind of starts happening, like the old man dies, but then they cut off somebody's face and put their face on his face, and then all of a sudden he's back.
Yeah. Well, there's also the strangling washcloth.
It's supposed to be, I thought that was supposed to be like some like the shroud of whatever, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, it probably, but yeah, I don't know.
They definitely do their damnedest to connect things and like make it in, but it's then the birds, like the evil birds.
It was supposed to be a stork, right? Because like she's going to deliver a baby. So like the stork, I'm like, all right, fine. But here's my problem. And this is the same thing with the editor and a lot of horror movies is like, you want the kill. You want to have the kill on camera. You want to have the whatever, the assault or whatever on your characters. But like the stork is pecking at this woman's neck, which is filled with maggots, by the way. But the stork's pecking at her and she's just screaming. She doesn't grab its beak. There's no attempt to fight back. Same thing when the chainsaw was coming at the dude. Like in the editor, there's no attempt to fight back. And that totally removes me from believing any of it. Because if you're coming at me with a chainsaw, I'm going to fucking fight you.
Right.
Like,
yeah.
I mean, you may tag me with it a couple of times, but I'm going to do my best to get you to drop it so I can use it on you. Not sit there and go, and have my hands at my sides. Like, come on. I hate that.
Yeah.
That's a small nitpick, but it's not at the same time.
No, because the issue is that they bring all these things in, like, you know, when they were like the Manson like hippie killers at the beginning of it. You know, you have this, like you're talking about the storks, there's the weird dream sequences, there's the extinct beetle.
Yeah.
You got all these things. But the whole time I'm like, what does this have to do with any of it?
Right. Right. I don't know.
And that's kind of what I ended up saying at the end of it too, was I'm just like, I like what they were going for, man, but I just, for whatever reason, I just couldn't finish.
Yeah. A lot of movies, not a lot of movies, but I see this happen a bunch with anything that anybody's been working on for a long time. Like Ripley's, she submitted a play to a state competition, and she would talk to me about it and give me like, I don't know what to do with this part. Should this character actually do this kind of thing or say this? Or how does narcissism work in this way? But it was so specific that I'm like, dude, until I can read the fucking thing, I don't know what you're talking about. And I feel that a lot of movies, I feel that some movies, I can't say a lot because that's not always true. Some movies like this, and maybe even the editor, you have a limited amount of people working on it and a limited amount of people that are proofreading it or going over it and stuff. And you are so well versed in what the characters are thinking, doing, what they're expected to do, and what's going to happen to them that you forget to convey some of that to the audience. And because you're familiar with it, you feel like you can cut parts out. Like
Yeah.
Cameron had this problem with The Abyss, I believe. He was so involved and so familiar with all of the ins and outs of the script. I feel like he cut a super important scene.
Mm-hmm.
As maybe with aliens, but not necessarily. But yeah, I think that's what this suffers from, is the familiarity with the script without thinking of what is an outsider going to think of this. That's the best I can do. Because the symbolism, like Jodorowsky, like you watch that once and you're like, okay, there's a lot of symbolism in here. That's the best you can get out of it.
Yeah,
but you know that going into his stuff, like it should be a little confounding. It should be a little bit like, here's how you can interpret it in your own way, and that's valid too, because he's just a happy dude making movies. So it's like, I think that's what this suffers from, is the unfamiliarity with the audience with the whole
For
thing.
sure. But I mean, I definitely remember this artwork from the like video store.
Oh
like,
yeah.
That was definitely one that was a VHS on the thing.
Yep.
That I just never picked up and watched. But let's go. All right, Chris, do you recommend, and was your grade for The Sect, Devil's Daughter, original title, La Secta?
I'm oddly enough going to recommend this because this is a weird one. And it's kind of one of those you got to see on your own, because people act so stupid in this movie that it's literally unbelievable. A woman shows up, doesn't say a word to anybody, gives the guy an eye, and he follows her to a van, the back of an 18-wheeler, like thinking he's going to have sex. Like, this is why we have AIDS, people, because you just had sex willy-nilly with everybody, with your willy. And like, no, that's, I don't know if it's just me, but I would be so fucking suspicious of anybody that came at me like that.
Oh, for sure.
And it wasn't just the one guy, it was his friends as well. They're like, hey, save some for me. And like, oh, fucking gross. God damn. And he wasn't even the one that died in that scene initially, as far as I can remember.
So weird.
And it's just, I don't understand what they were doing. I mean, I do, but I don't.
No, I know exactly what you're saying, man.
So I'm giving this a thing, right? A recommend or not? So yeah, watch this and tell me what's going on. I will say though, I think they did have an ambitious script, but kind of lost their way halfway through pulling it off. It feels cheap at times. And there was one car accident where I literally thought people were going to die in real life. It was that bad. So good for them. But yeah, I'm gonna go with you know what? I didn't hate this. It did keep me thinking, what the fuck is going to happen next? So I'm gonna give it a C+.
All right.
But C+.
Yeah, no, I know exactly what you're saying, and strangely enough, I'm agreeing with you for almost the entire. I mean, like our review doesn't like this was a really hard film to review. Like it's just because it's so fucking weird and like just kind of like batshit, and it's very much like, well, none of this makes any sense, but for some reason, it still held my attention better than most
Right?
things.
Yeah.
So I'm going to give it a recommend also. But this was the right way of throwing all the shit at the wall.
Yeah.
And using what sticks. Whereas, again, I can't remember what fucking movie we covered last week.
I should probably look that up because I should know
that was another one where you threw all the shit at the wall, nothing sticked, but you still like used all of it or whatever. So it's an interesting watch. I can't tell you it's good. It's got some good atmosphere to it. It's got like a nice dreamlike feel. It definitely because I know Michel Salve he's a Argento like prodigy. So it's definitely poor man Suspiria like type feel, just without like, so it's like, it feels like that, or like, kind of like opera maybe.
Okay.
Just without a lot of the, without a lot of the pizzazz.
Yeah. It did feel to me like with the what's it called, the stork or crane or whatever they used. It did feel like they were doing a bird with crystal plumage nod with that too.
Potentially, yeah.
So
potentially. But yeah, it's a little confusing. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but it's surprisingly entertaining.
Yeah.
So I will give it a grade of, you said C+.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll say C, borderline C+. Is where I'll fall on that. Not pissed that I watched it. So I guess that's something.
Yeah.
Speaking of not being pissed for watching something, I can only assume that our good friend Joe, who was covering Hulu's Hellraiser from 2 years ago now?
I think so, yeah.
So, because he's been through hell and back to cover this. So let's see. And then I got to figure out what he's going to cover next. So, all right, here we go.
Well, hello, Bill. Hello, Chris. And hello, OTC Nation. It's your boy Joe here, and finishing out the Hellraiser series today with Hellraiser from 2022. You'll have to forgive me if you can hear my chickens in the background. They decided that today is the day of loud noises. They are singing the song of their people. Regardless, Bill made me watch Hellraiser. I had a whole page written before starting the movie about how disappointed I was with some of the reaction to this movie. You know the ones I mean. The people that follow J.K. Rowling on Twitter. Mm-hmm. Them. A whole page. Honestly, with some pretty good jokes. But I'm deciding to not give them the energy. Instead, let's talk about Hulu came out fucking swinging for the fences in 2022 with two absolutely baller... They're not really sequels or even remakes, reimaginings, additions. Fuck it. Movies. Two baller movies that take place in existing. Fuck it again. One is a remake. The other one's a prequel. I don't know. It's Hellraiser and Prey. I loved them both.
Oh yeah, Prey.
The thing they did, and in fact, when articles came out about these movies before they came out, they led with this information, was hire directors for these movies that were fans of the original. Mm-hmm. Gasp.
Novel idea.
Not fanboys, fans.
That's a
genuine,
good distinction.
Unironic fans. David Bruckner for this, and Dan Trachtenberg for Prey.
Yeah.
As indie wrestling fans might chant when something good is happening, more of this, more of this. Though I will add a please and thank you, but that's kind of an unwieldy chant.
It's fair.
You know, it's fair. There are a lot of things in this world where the outlier should be the norm, but the one that is relevant here and makes my brain blow a fucking gasket is that it's somehow viewed as a bold choice to hire someone to direct these movies that's a fan of the originals.
Yeah.
But they let people with degrees in finance take over the artistic process instead of just stuffing them into a windowless office and shouting, "Find me the money to make this movie, nerd," like they should have. Charlie Chaplin saw this coming back in 1919 when he started United Artists, and they made him pay for it. All right, I'll get off my soapbox now and start the movie. After 2 years, there are some things coming back to me right away, and I have the same thought now that I did in 2022. They fucking understood the assignment. They got the tone, they got the look, they got a lot of the roadmap for these stories being about the choices that we make and sort of the transactional nature of life. Money for the box, payment in one form or another for services rendered, even if the services rendered include being turned into tartar by hooks on chains. You know, that old idiom. Tale as old as time, song as old as, oh God, my skin is being ripped off. There's also kind of a dual thing going on here with condemning the upper classes for their excesses, which has been featured in other Hellraiser films, and that with wealth and power comes like a numbness to everyday pleasures, blah blah blue. But also, at the end of the day, human beings desire pleasure in one form or another and will do almost anything to achieve it. I don't know why I just had this thought. Maybe because I was using a lot of flowery language just now, but Doug Bradley, in character, doing a TED Talk is something I would very much like to see. I know I'm not saying anything new here, and all the stories at their base are about psychology to one degree or another, but the layers to which a good Hellraiser movie, a good Hellraiser movie, gets into the correlation between our minds and our bodies and our motivations and just the whole existence thing, is on a funnier note, they also get into what it's like to have roommates in a small apartment. As our main character is getting loudly railed like Union Pacific, and when they come out to presumably rehydrate, there's a small dinner party going on, and they heard all the ruckus. A fish hook through the palm might hurt like hell, but I would take that over the awkward confrontation of, hey, you just heard us exchanging fluids, and we are all entirely too Midwest polite to talk about it. Which has never happened to me ever. Nope. The whole crux of the first half is Riley, a young woman steeped in malaise and addiction, who allows her scumbag boyfriend to talk her into, to be fair, he doesn't need to try that hard, talk her into a heist where the only thing they get is the box. A nice touch here is that the story is propelled forward when her brother, who is the only one trying to help her, is taken by the Cenobites when it should have been her. Often the people who pay the biggest price for an addict are the people who care about them the most. Trust me, I see it at my job every day in real life. It's a great touch. The majority of this movie is Riley and a hapless group of friends searching for her brother. I've had a hard time here doing like a blow-by-blow plot thingy here. I'm like 2/3 of the way through the movie at this point. Partly because it all kind of flows. This movie really kind of flows together. You hardly tell it's 2 hours. And partly because the greater concepts at play here, honestly, are much more fascinating than, oh, Riley goes to her scummy boyfriend for help, and then they go visit the lady who facilitated bad things for this billionaire guy who was like the catalyst for this whole thing, and yeah. The meaning of the story is way more interesting than Riley bumblefucking her way through figuring out what's going on and how to get her brother back, even though that's the vehicle by which they tell that. More than any of the previous films, they dig into the lore of this other dimension. That's fresh and new. We saw hints at the other configurations of the box, mainly in part 2, where they make the Leviathan configuration. Strangely enough, while they're in Leviathan's domain. My only question is, was no one really interested in that to the point where they are just now at an 11th film exploring this? I cannot be the only one who wants more of this.
It's easy. More of the same.
I'm betting Chris did. At least Chris. It's just, it might just be me and you, Chris, but I wanted more of the lore.
Yeah.
I don't want to go too long here. Too late. But I could probably do 30 minutes on this movie. Is it perfect? No. Is it 100% worth your time? Absolutely fucking yes. Like the bulk of Hellraiser films, or at least the first 4 and Judgment, the last 20 minutes here are bonkers and worth the whole movie. My only note, if I was directing, would be to tell the guy playing the billionaire guy who wasn't dead the whole time, spoiler alert, and was playing everyone, to stop doing an Al Pacino impression. Like he kind of goes off into things and like he really borders on dipping into an Al Pacino impression. Here's the thing. The good. They used Jamie Clayton as Pinhead just right. She pops in every now and then, not too much, not too little, perfect level of androgyny. Also, there's like little touches, little nods to the previous films, and a really good amount of gore and torture without going so far as to become campy, which is kind of the risk when you're dipping into gore. The bad. As much as they leaned into the lore more than prior films, I still think I don't think they got into it enough. I really don't. There were a few other minor things not really worth pointing out, other than I don't think Pinhead would have killed a fellow Cenobite when they were marked by the box. That just felt off to me. Hellraiser gets a big ass pass. As a series, it is 3 great films, 3 very good, and 5 fucking atrocious films, which puts it over 50%. So I guess overall the series gets a pass.
Wow.
That surprises even me.
Yeah.
I had to do the math there for a second, but not enough to put it up on the fridge for display. Nah. This series was more of a test than I thought it would be. And boy, the bad ones are really bad, but the good ones are really good. So I guess that only leads us to Bill. What's next?
I don't think we ever had Joe do the Slumber Party Massacre movies. I think that could be interesting. Very different than what he's been doing. So
Yeah.
All right, OTC Nation, you heard the man. I'll be back with that next week. Hopefully it won't drive me insane. Until then, be good, everyone.
On Slumber Party Massacre, I think there's only 3.
Okay. All right.
So that's not so bad.
Okay, so it's not a reboot, it's not a remake, it's a new adaptation of the original story idea.
Yeah.
Right? And I love the fact that their clothes was their skin just twisted around and fucking the priest, because they're not named Pinhead in the credits. Jamie was absolutely perfect. I loved that version. And I loved all the shiny gold that they had. Like there's ornamentation to it instead of like the black leather from before.
Right.
It made it special in a way. It was interesting. I want more. I want another one. Definitely.
I think we'll get one.
Yeah, there's nothing yet though.
Well, maybe we won't then.
I don't know.
All right then. Well, at least we've got Reverend Scott.
Outside the cinema. It's a podcast, fuckface. Nobody wants that.
It's too on the nose.
I remember saying that.
What?
Yeah.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
With Reverend Scott.
Oh, my room smells like dog farts.
Hey there, Bill and Chris. This is Reverend Scott. How's a little holy shit sound?
No, I'm good.
Well, that's unfortunate, because not only do I want to make you relive those horrible films you covered last week, but I have some horrible films to talk about that I saw too. But I'm guessing you already knew that.
I knew that.
Okay then, first movie.
Demon.
Tell me who made this masterpiece, Bill.
Dream Demon, 1988. Directed by Harley Cokeless. More like Harley Coked Up.
Is he right, folks? He'll be here all week. Make sure you tip your waitress. Anyway, tell me about this flick.
We have Diana. She's going to be marrying Oliver. Oliver is a decorated war hero from the Falcons. But she's having these terrifying dreams about all kinds of different things.
Wow, I must be a metal bean because that sounds riveting. Ooh. So I heard Oliver was hired for a strange reason.
He's gross. That's what he's hired for.
No, not that reason. Because of his dick.
How big is his dick?
You tell me. You saw the movie. Never mind. I'll just assume it's all a dream, so it's huge. So what would you say is the most realistic part of this film? What part would you relate to the most?
You can't tell what's a dream and what's real.
Right.
Because they don't set any type of boundaries to know what's what.
Oh, that's just like my life. I never know what the fuck's going on.
What exactly is the point and where are we going?
Yeah.
That's right. Every day is like that.
Is this a dream now? I have no fucking idea.
God, I hope so. Sounds like this movie was a home run. Any gripes?
It's called Dream Demon, but there's no Dream Demon.
Yeah. Semantics. I give
Demon
an A-, and the review gets a B+. So you did worse than that movie.
That was disappointing.
Next on the docket from last week was
Maniac Killer or Mania, and I'm sure there's an Italian title which I'll look up momentarily. 1987, starring Bo Svensson.
No one cares. So what kind of flick is this one?
It's one of those Italian productions where they were able to score a couple of has-been American actors, and they were like, well, we got these guys, let's put them in a movie.
Yeah.
And we got Maniac Killer.
Yeah. We did.
If previous reviews on OTC have taught me anything, it's that can be a recipe for success.
Chris, could you ever forget the fact that he also was the director of your first episode of OTC, Strip Nude for Your Killer?
Oh, really?
Yep.
That explains a lot about this movie.
We already know about that Joker. Tell us who else is in this. But please don't take too long. I got shit to do.
Svensson plays Count Silvano. Count of what? I don't know. Chuck Connors plays Professor Roger Osborne. His story is that he's moved to wherever this is supposed to be, somewhere in Italy, after leaving California as a disgraced scientist who was rumored to have been testing on women and killing them, never proven. And then we have Robert Ginty playing Godrand, who is in love with the Count's wife for some reason or another.
Yeah.
We have Doreen, who plays Chuck Connors' helper/maid, I guess. And then the only other character that really matters is Matthew, who is played by Francois Grace. He's supposed to be the quote-unquote simple, mentally challenged character of the film.
That worked nicely. How about I do that for all your clips?
How about you fuck off then?
I can't wait to. So, quit teasing me. Tell me what the best part of this movie was.
All hell breaks loose. We got a couple of really bad gunfights. One guy randomly just is shooting out the window, and then he has a fucking grenade.
That escalated quickly.
It sure did. Too bad this segment isn't escalating quickly.
This is just fucking ridiculous.
Yeah. This is awful.
Aw, thanks. So I guess I'll just have to grade Maniac Killer, and I guess it gets an A. And the review? That gets an A as well. Congrats, you win nothing.
That was disappointing.
And speaking of disappointing, I saw not one, but 2 movies lately in the theater. First, I took both my daughters to see Kung Fu Panda 4. Did you know that there was a third one?
Yep.
Well, this time we got to enjoy the annoying voice of Aquafina as a fox or something. But luckily, they brought back Jack Black, thank God, and a new villain called the Chameleon, voiced by Viola Davis. You know, and I like her. She's pretty good. Apparently, your favorite social media influencer was in this too, Mr. Beast. He did a voice briefly.
Already am completely bored with what you're saying.
Anyway, it's fine. For a 4th film in a kids franchise, it works pretty well. I'm sure my older daughter didn't really much care about this, but she got a free ticket and some food out of the deal, so she was in for it. But my younger daughter, she really got a fucking kick out of this. She thought it was a riot. So I guess I'll give Kung Fu Panda 4 B-, C+, something in there. I don't know. No one cares.
Oh, right, Chris. Where do we go from here?
A different movie.
After that, just in time to be 7 months early for Halloween, Imaginary. The story of a creepy stuffed bear, a stepmom, and a whole lot of filler scenes. So the guy that played Jesus on The Walking Dead, he remarried. He had 2 daughters with a previous mom who's now mentally unstable or something. The whole family's moving into stepmom's childhood house. That's when the little girl finds a stuffed bear in a secret area in the basement. She calls him Chauncey. This is her new imaginary friend, and they're doing some weird scavenger hunt shit. And that's causing the stepmom to think,
hey, what's going on?
There's also stepmom's dad in an assisted living facility because he went crazy. But stepmom doesn't really remember much about that. Then there's the crazy neighbor that used to babysit stepmom when she was a kid, and she remembers stuff, but she's not telling us because suspense or something. And it's all surrounding an evil entity that is using that little girl and making her think it's her imaginary friend to get what it really wants. And if that sounds like a good premise, I guess it kind of is. And if you think that sounds like a good way to find excuses for some great special effects, blood, and gore.
No, that's not true.
This movie felt sterilized or like it was made for TV for family night or something. Had they made this R-rated, it could have actually been pretty good. But it was just slow and predictable for like 95% of it. There's a few decent ideas near the end in that last 5%, but it felt like too little too late. At least during those scenes, there's a little tension and we get to finally get a good look at this evil entity and kind of a slightly grotesque cartoony bear with gnarly teeth, disheveled fur, and huge claws. I'm not gonna lie, it looked pretty badass.
So for a fraction of a second, I was very surprised by this movie.
They tried some interesting concepts at the end, but left me feeling kind of like...
So I guess one of the... Whatever, it doesn't matter.
And even worse, halfway through the movie, the dad just takes off to quote-unquote go to work. Maybe he's in a band or something based on his douchebag appearance. But, you know, despite his younger daughter going missing at one point and the cops were called out and the house basically burning down at another point, he never comes back. I guess he just felt like at the end.
Who cares?
I give Imaginary a C-. It's not offensive, but it also is just too milquetoast to be memorable at all. I wish I had something more exciting to discuss this week, but they can't all be winners.
Hey, listen, like, it's okay. Don't worry about it.
I think that's a good place to stop for this week, but tune in to OTC next week when Bill starts production on his remake of the movie Basket Case.
But I will be having a surgery to remove pieces of me.
It's your evil twin. They're finally taking out.
Yeah, it settled in my colon and my lower intestine.
Yeah, well, you always said he was a piece of shit.
And then extends an open invitation for me to live at his house with him.
Why don't you come away with me? I love you. You should be with me.
All that and so many more confessions of love. But until then, peace and love, guys. Outside the cinema.
It's just, it's awesome and uncomfortable all at the same time.
Awesome and uncomfortable. Name of your sex tape.
It is.
Outside the cinema.
Sometimes there's a ritual involved, and sometimes it's just we're going to just cut you. Well, there you have it. Thank you very much, Scott. Thank you very much, Joe. Thank you guys for listening to the show. If you would like to support us and help keep us on the air, go to patreon.com/outsidethecinema. Any donations to the show help keep us going. Keep us going, keeps us excited, keeps us running it,
I do know.
Yeah. You can follow us on social media at OTC Bill and at Cthulhu. We've got a Facebook group that nobody uses really all that often, so that's there if you do decide you want to use it. Yeah. That's cool, man.
Yeah.
That's all I got, man.
I think we're good.
Yeah, all right. Hey, everybody enjoy themselves. We'll talk to you next week. Bye-bye.
Bye.